Welcome to the American Made and Paid Show, the home of free speech and independent thought.
The big story is freedom of speech is really in trouble. The far left knows that at any time they can call for a sponsor boycott of anyone they despise.
It is right here, right now, where you'll get your weekly dose of unfiltered truth.
It's non-negotiable. Pre-existing conditions will be protected. This president has said this as a candidate.
Insight.
Very few people I know could have handled it. We can never, ever let this happen to another president again.
And information that challenges the American way of life.
Welcome, everybody, to the American Made and Paid Show. Zach here, back with Professor Dreg. Got a killer show for you guys today. And I don't know if you guys have started to notice, but I know there have been a couple of pre-roll ads before this podcast. Yes, I know. There are people that are putting ads on here. It has to happen. In fact, funny story before we jump into it. I got an ad for, I won't say who because I don't think I'll get as many advertisements if I say this, but it was something to do with San Francisco, and it just wasn't really exactly what I stand for. So I opted out of that. But yeah, there's some ads now. Don't be turned off by that. We got to make money too. That's just how it works. It's called the paid show for a reason. Anywho, slowly but surely, thank you guys for tuning in. It's because of your listening and your attentiveness to the show that is getting us places, which is what we appreciate. 11,000 downloads, not too bad for past couple of months. It's not huge. It's not Rogan numbers, but hey, you got to start somewhere. Anyways, if you guys haven't left an iTunes review, be sure you go and do that because it really means a lot to us. If you like us or you don't like us, be sure to send us an email, and we will happily talk about specific topics you want us to cover. But let's jump into so Professor Dreg and I were talking about.
Let me add one thing.
Oh, okay.
What we speak about on this show will help you in your real life. It really does. So, you guys really send in your stuff, whatever you want us to talk about, write good reviews about us, and okay, now let's move on.
Yeah, still getting legitimized here, but we were talking about taxes a little bit earlier because I found that I have to pay something like, as a self-employed person, I won't go into too much of my details, but I've got to pay like several $1,000s this quarter alone for my self-employed income, and it's just we don't have to dive into ways to cut corners because that wouldn't be a good idea. But yeah, I mean, I don't know why I'm bringing this up, but I want to continue our discussion on economics, right? We had spoken about this a little bit yesterday about black markets, about unregulated economies, and how in the process of doing so, they actually keep economies afloat, right? A lot of the stuff that may not necessarily be monitored, like services, there's a lot of businesses out there where services agreements, whether it's general labor, a lot of times, a lot of that money goes unreported, especially when you pay a lot of your workers in cash. So one thing that resonated with me is we were talking about family businesses, right? A lot of these laundromats, restaurants, Chinese grocery stores, even Jewish grocery stores, I would argue.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, it's all cash under the table. So
the only grocery stores that don't have under the table employees are like chains like Vaughn's, I guess that's Safeway. I don't know, I'm thinking LA. Safeway, Albertsons, places like that. Whole Foods, I don't know Whole Foods, but the big chain stores don't have under the table. But mom and pops, everybody knows they do. That's how we survive. But going back to like taxes or whatever, I will say this. If you're young, and you have no dependents, no kids, no anything, just pay your taxes. Just, and that'll be my advice to anybody in a situation where you're young, you're making good cash.
Yeah.
Just pay the taxes, save your money, don't spend, because that's the problem. When you start spending your money or fall into the trap of, I got my first credit card and my credit score is so high, F that. You don't need a good credit score. You don't need any of that stuff. What you need is cash and an ability to make cash. That's all you need.
Okay, well, that's good to know.
Taxes on time.
So something you should check out, a show I've been watching a lot on YouTube is CNBC's Make It. It's literally called CNBC Make It. You should check it out. It's a bunch of these millennials and how they spend their money. It's like, okay, couple making $200K in San Francisco. Here's how we spend our money. guy makes $55K in New York City. This is how he spends money. It's really interesting seeing how a lot of young people manage money. Something that people want us to talk a lot about, actually, is personal finance, right? We dive into that a little bit here on this show, but this is a lifestyle show about conservatism. You can't not talk about debt. You can't not talk about personal finance and making money without addressing that, right? So, yeah, the one big thing is student loans, and I think we've dived into student loans a little bit on this show. So it's definitely a hot topic. It's ballooned to over 1.5 trillion. That's what the deficit is looking like.
No, but oh God, no, but that's student loans are really illegal, and this is I hate to say it because, dude, I'm telling you.
Let's talk about that. Let's dive into student loans. It's
because
in my age bracket.
Like, because I was listening to the radio last night, and somebody said something goes like "baby Christians" or something like that. Like that. Somebody said like I would be considered well, I wasn't talking to anybody, but based on what this lady was saying, this one preacher lady, because it was a weird thing. Like I was driving and then, I was flipping through the stations and then all of a sudden just turned it to like 1100 AM, which is some kind of Christian station. And they have all these preachers on. So this lady was talking about baby Christians, like when you barely find out who Jesus is, you have all these questions and all you want to do is ask questions. And I'm thinking, Jesus, that feels like me because I got all these questions. So anyway, but going back to economics, student loans are really bad and they're illegal. They're totally illegal.
Even the federally insured ones? I mean, there's private.
That's the point. There should be no federally insured loan for any college. Why? Why is that even how is that even possible? You know what I mean? It's
to keep you in debt forever. I mean,
but that's the thing. Who's funding these federal loans? So we spoke about this before too, about Chase,
right.
JP Morgan Chase backing the mortgage loans for UC Berkeley, which
right.
is that Facebook dude was able to get a house because the government forced, they make a deal with Chase and then Chase, they do underhanded things and then they screw over the people. But in the hands of that Facebook dude, the one that was, the bad dude, I forgot his name. But
the engineer that got investigated by Project Veritas, James O'Keefe.
Yeah, that dude. See, now he's living in a multi-million-dollar home because his wife works at UC Berkeley, and they somehow, some way, magically qualify for a multi-million-dollar home when their salaries do not justify it. But because UC Berkeley can force Chase to underwrite that loan, well, they got that house.
Right.
Without even qualifying. They only have to put, if you buy a house and you can't put up 20%, you can't afford it. It's just magic. Because everybody knows if you don't have money saved up, there's no way you can pay like a huge, monthly. But anyway, it's neither here nor there. Going back to student loans is one of the biggest scams ever done.
Yeah,
ever.
Agreed.
Because it's insane. And this is why schools are so expensive now, because they know the people running, the university administrators, they know these loans are guaranteed. So if they say, hey, look, my college is now worth $100,000 a year because I have a dental program, knowing that most dentists aren't going to make that kind of money because they don't. Dentists don't make that kind of money that could justify a $400,000 student loan debt. They'll never pay it off, but because they've already been paid, they can do it and they'll keep upping the prices. So at this point, I'm going to talk about Jesus again and what I think, because it always comes back to how are these. Okay, so let me say this more clearly. The reason why people are, because I have to give credit to that guy, Tim Pool. Tim Pool came down with this stat about how many people are against capitalism. So, 56% of the people are in favor of capitalism and the rest are not. So 40-some percent do not believe in capitalism, but they don't believe in socialism either. So they believe, and he coined it as, free market capitalism is wrong. And that's what he was saying, oh, when there's free market, then everything goes amok and you get companies like Facebook and Google. But that is not a free market. That's not. The reason why Google is because the government helped Google get to where they need to be. And it's the same thing with Apple. Apple got help from the government. They did. And through regulations and all this other stuff, not just even regulations, with backhanded deals with lobbyists, they were able to get favorable legislation that allows Apple to do what they do. They can go into China and, China in theory is one of our enemies. So how was Apple able to go into China? Well, with the help of the government. and the government helped Apple, Nike, and all these other companies exploit China. It's just how it works. And so that's not free market capitalism, because in a real free market, the government would never go in and step in and negotiate or make sure everything is A-okay for American companies.
But wouldn't you need that to prevent monopolies, or does that actually encourage monopolies to happen?
Well, of course it's going to encourage a monopoly. It encourages monopolies because, you have somebody like when Barbara Boxer was in office, she literally destroyed the Discover card with her legislation. She, prior to signing that bill, she bought like 60,000 shares of Visa. And then guess what happened? 2 days after she bought the stocks, they signed some legislation, Visa goes through the roof. And now Visa is the dominant credit card in the world.
They are manipulating stock prices. The government actually manipulates different values of how stocks
so
are.
MasterCard, come on, who uses MasterCard?
No one.
Yeah, exactly. Discover card is like almost extinct.
Well, I don't use Discover, but my dad uses it, and I know a few people that use Discover, but it's not Visa, it's not Visa.
No, but that's the point. Discover in the old days was real prominent. And after that bill, because Barbara Boxer, people are like, who in the hell is Barbara Boxer? She was an old senator from California. She retired, and that's Kamala Harris took her spot. But anyways, I went from bad to worse. It was like, gosh, but I really want to touch about this too. Like, I want the show really to be more about leadership versus economics, but through economics comes leadership. Because if we don't understand economics and how to make money, then we are never going to have any leaders. It's just a reality. So when Tim Pool was talking about, I believe in, I don't believe in socialism, but I believe in capitalism, because without capitalism, there would be no radios and wealth and things like that. I forgot, I'm paraphrasing. But he goes, but we have to put caps on capitalism. And I think he called it capitalism for services.
So, how does this tie back to student loans? Because I want to talk about student loans. That's a big thing that plagues everyone.
No, but the thing is, there is nothing anybody can do about student loans. You just have to pay it.
Yeah.
You work for the government, because everybody goes, oh, you work for the government for 10 years.
Student loan forgiveness. That is the biggest scam out there, to get people to not pay or to pay the bare minimum. And then, go ahead.
But check this out. I'm not kidding. This is how it works. When you work for the government for 10 years, you have to pay on your student loan during those 10 years. After 10 years of paying whatever they tell you to pay, which is usually 15% of your paycheck, I'm not kidding you. They make you pay 15% of your net, not your gross, your net. So it's not as big as it could be. So 15% of your net, let's say if you're netting like $500, you pay 15% of that, which is a pretty huge chunk. And but if you're, if you're gross and you have a lot going to your 401k or child support, it won't affect any of that. But 15% of your net is pretty high. So after paying that for 10 years, month after month after month, a big significant part of that money that you owe to your student loan is already gone. And then so by the time your 10 years is up and you meet all the requirements, oh, you only owe like $5,000 left. So yeah, we'll forgive you. That's the interest. Like, you know, because even the interest rates are stupidly high. 7%? That's extremely high. That's like, what?
That's more than a mortgage.
That's twice as much as a mortgage. You could have bought 2 houses for what? You know what I mean? Like, seriously, you could have literally bought 2 houses. So there's really nothing to talk about with student loans other than you just got to pay it.
I'm not worried mostly about the whole loan forgiveness, or I'm more worried about, because, okay, the original topic here was I watched this thing called, there's a lot, what's popular on the internet now is how millennials manage their money, because clearly a lot of us are basically financially illiterate. I mean, you see how irresponsible some of these people are. It's obscene. And not going to lie, I mean, I never got student loans, thank God, but I've been in my fair share of debt. I'm not there anymore. But the thing is, you look at their budget breakdowns and all that kind of stuff and paying, like, I don't know, $500 towards a student loan. Here's the thing about the student loan forgiveness, though. Whether it's $50K that you owe or $200K, I think that the whole loan forgiveness thing only really applies, number one, if you're doing government work, which, let's face it, are you really going to have a $200,000 a year job working for the government unless you're like the director of the National Intelligence Agency? No, the president only makes $400,000. Vice president probably makes half of that. So if you work in a government agency or any kind of public service job, let's face it, it's not going to be very much. And here's another
attorneys working for the government make good money.
Right, but so this hits that other door, the closed door that I'm talking about, which is paying 15% of that towards whatever student loans you have. Number one, I don't even know if you're going to, I mean, you say you'll pay most of it off. I don't think you'll actually put much of a dent in it. And number two, this is the more prominent problem. Legislation could change a month before that stuff happens.
And then
you're screwed.
Yeah, well, but in theory, most people, if they work for the government, it's 80% is usually paid off by the end of the 10 years.
Even if it's like $200,000?
Yeah, because usually if you have if people, no, I've seen people do it with 300,000, because like the people who make good money for the government would be, you know, obviously police officers, you know, they make like 100, you know, whatever. And then there's a lot of doctors and nurses. Like, you'd be shocked how much nurses make. So, you know what I mean? Like, you're talking about 6-figure salaries, and that's why medical school is so expensive. That's why, you know, law school is so expensive. Because if you get a government job as an attorney, you're automatic. Everybody's making 6 figures. And after like 10 years, or even after 5 years, you're making like, you know, 170, 180 a year. So the government pays just as well as the private sector, which is insane. It's not supposed to be that way. The whole point of working for the government was you have job security, but at a much lesser rate. So you're supposed to make about, you know, 60% or half of what the private sector makes.
Right. And because you still get benefits on top of that. Don't you get a government pension and all that type of stuff?
Yeah, you get your benefits, retirement. So you get a government job for security knowing that you're not going to make a lot of money. But because our government is so big, you know, you can honestly work for the shit, you know, like, okay, I hate to say this, but because I don't want to give people, because I hate to give out information and everybody goes like, what? And then everyone's going to apply for that job, because I don't want people working for the government because it's a waste of taxes. But you know, the people who pick up street needles in San Francisco, they get $150,000 a year doing that crap.
I believe that. Wait, you didn't? You know, I believe that because, you know, BART janitors make around that much too.
Yeah, well, that one dude made $500,000 a year.
Yeah, and that's from overtime. That's from
because he was working overtime. Time and a half.
That's amazing. A BART janitor. You know how nasty BART is, right? Like,
yeah. Yeah. And another janitor from corrections made that much money too. He was like, dude, like they were just pulling out numbers. Like this one dude made 700-something thousand being a janitor, and But that's how dysfunctional the government is. It's like the dude made twice as much as the president, because at the time the president was only making $200,000 a year.
Yeah.
The pay raise was just pretty recent. So in the 80s and the 90s, dudes were just pulling off like working 600, 700,000. Just pulling in hours, getting time and a half. Because janitors, like, why are they getting so much money? They're wearing gloves. It's not like they're inhaling anything crazy. But that's just government employees. Like, for example, the San Francisco Muni, SFTMA, I believe that's what they're called. Their bus drivers are the highest paid bus drivers in the country, because every time anybody gets a raise, their union automatically gets 0.5% more than the highest people.
How much does an SF Muni driver make?
Yeah, I don't know, but somebody was saying it was like in the hundreds of thousands of dollars. Like they make
SF Muni, really?
Yeah, if you're a bus driver, I'm gonna look it up. Bus drivers.
Really?
No.
Those people that basically sit behind that plastic, plastic frame on a Muni bus to avoid getting stuff thrown at them. I believe it. I mean, it's not that you have. It's not that I don't believe you. I believe it, but I was surprised.
I'm looking it up. Muni drivers. Because bus drivers don't make crap.
Well, so here's another thing about the student loan thing that we've talked about probably on this show, but it's always worth bringing up just because it's so prevalent with higher education, especially among people my age, right? Now, I have a different perception on that. I don't think I would have made the same decisions I made. I mean, I'm fine because I was very fortunate to have my parents finance it, but still, One thing I was going to say about the student loans thing, which once you look that up, we'll talk about, is the fact that you can't declare bankruptcy over that. So people talk about consolidate your loans and then, do all of that. You can't get out of student loans even with bankruptcy. That's the scary thing. Everything else you can. You can have a failed business. You can lose your house. You can do all that type of stuff and declare bankruptcy to wipe away your debts. But student loans, I mean, man.
Well, okay, so here it says they're making $79,000 to drive the bus.
Oh, okay.
And the average is $52,000. But I'm trying to read something because there's a number that says $271,999. But yeah, anyway, so it's not as high as I thought. Well, because it says the salary range from $26,000 to $271,000 for mini bus drivers.
I believe it.
No, but I'm thinking, who would work for $26,000 when everybody else is making $271,000? So they say anyway, the middle bus drivers for muni make between $71,000 to $137,000, with the top 86% making $271,000. Dude, that's insane. That's an insane amount of money. $271,000 to drive a bus. There's some, maybe those guys drive the cable cars. I don't know. That maybe, because it could be, right? I mean, because
it's true.
Driving a cable car seems a little bit more riskier because there's tourists and stuff like that. So that I could see why you would want to pay that much money. But a regular bus driver, it seems like a lot of money to me. Like $131. Like I'm trying to figure out who in the hell is making $271,000.
Well, okay, well that's not as relevant. I mean, I get that. But student loans. So let's talk about the student loan thing more, because let's talk about how criminal it is. That we've talked about this where kids, right? They're not going to give you a credit card in the beginning for more than like $500, your credit limit, right? But they'll give you a loan, a student loan, for practically a limitless amount of money to go to school.
Dude,
so it's not
working.
Yeah.
That's the point. Students don't work. It's just, you brought a very good point. Why in the hell is anybody going to give you $60,000 when you're not working? You're just an 18-year-old kid. That's a very excellent point. Seriously, if it's that hard just to get $500, how in the hell does that $500 translate to $60,000?
And also here's the thing. I remember my parents talking about just the perception of earnings, right, versus loans.
Mhm.
And this is why when people go and work a regular job for a while before they decide they want to go to college, I am absolutely 100% behind that. You know how some kids talk about gap years? I think gap years are BS, by the way, because some kids do nothing. They just party and hang out and stuff.
Yeah.
Actually go get a job, because here's the deal. When a lot of people justify student loans by saying, well, I'll get out of this making 80 grand a year, so 100 grand student loan isn't so bad. Here's the kicker, though. You don't realize what that is. What 80 grand a year is actually. It's actually 55, 60 grand a year. That's actually technically what it is.
Yeah, after taxes.
Right. And you got your expenses and everything. When it comes down to your monthly paycheck, dude, it's just the you're only going to be contributing a couple thousand to it at the most every single month. Still going to take you 5 years, and don't forget the interest that's on top of it. So if you think about it, even if you were living on the bare minimums, right, it would take you several years to clear that up. I'd say 2 years minimum, and that's if you worked your hardest Dave Ramsey style and you didn't even you didn't go on vacation, you didn't do any of that stuff. So that's what I'm trying to say is you people have a false perception of, 80 grand against 100 grand. No, it's more like 30 to 40 grand across the board with 100 grand, because you're not taking into account and here's the thing, most kids who've never had a job, they're not going to know what that's like. They hear 100 grand a year, but what that really is 70, 75 realistic.
Yeah.
Probably even a little lower than that, actually.
Well, I mean, but it just depends. And, if they have kids, they have a tax write-off. So, I'm going to bring back the bus driver example. So if they're making $71,000 on average, let's say the average guy's making $71,000. If you have a family, your take home should be about $61,000, because you don't pay a lot in taxes when you have kids and a family. You just don't. So if you have a young family, and that's why, if in all honesty, I always say this: if you are smart, you would get married at a young age, in your 20s. So that way you could save more of your money, because your highest earning potential is going to be when you're 20s and your 30s. So if you have a family, the bigger your family, the less you got to pay to taxes. I'm not kidding you. And that's why it's like, think about this. If the average guy in San Francisco, family bus drivers, making $71,000, and his take home after taxes and everything else is $61,000, he's only paying $10,000 a year in taxes in San Francisco, where it's heavily taxed.
Right.
But because of having a family, because most bus drivers have ton of kids, I don't want to say they're all black, but most bus drivers are black. Or, it's just how it goes. And they have big families. So they don't have to pay a lot of taxes, because each kid is a tax write-off. Being head of household is a tax write-off. So, I honestly feel that if people get off of their cell phones and all these stupid dating apps,
Right.
and just go to school, find a good wife or find a good husband and work together, then because look, right now we pay zero taxes, the counselor and I. Why? Because we're a couple. And since we are going to get married soon, and we've been, doing whatever, we pay zero in taxes, and it's totally legal because we are working together, building something together. And if you really want to save on your taxes, find a good person to marry and do it that way. That's the only way to cheat the system. It's not even cheating the system, because you're going to have a good life partner forever. Because see, the thing is like this, and this is why, student loans, hell, I hate to say this because the counselor, I don't want to get her mad, but her student loan is in the 6 figures. So, and I know, Dave Ramsey says, whatever, I'll pay off all your debt before you pay. It's like, nah, because I got no debt, right? So we're buying land, building property, and all this other stuff. But once we do that, then we pay off the loan. Because, you know, and I don't mind paying her loans. I don't. Because why? That's my wife. Why the fuck am I going to care? You know what I mean? You marry somebody because of that.
Well, yeah, and you guys have already proven to stick by each other through thick and thin. So you don't have to worry about her just like taking off after you've done that, you know? Because you know, that's what happened to, okay, look up Wendy Davis. I think she was a forerunner for governor of Texas. You know, she divorced her husband the day after he paid off her last law school student loan.
Yeah, I heard of that one.
Yeah, so you know who I'm talking about already. This is also an attorney. He divorced her former husband, Jeff Davis, the day after he paid off her last student loan. She didn't pay it off. Her husband did the whole thing. Talk about, like, that's a whole nother thing about women and loans and all that, but I don't want to get into it. But you heard about Wendy Davis, right? Like,
yeah.
Ran for governor of Texas, I believe, but she got beat.
Yeah, she got beat by Greg Abbott.
So this woman is the type of woman you probably don't want to marry because you're not building nothing from her. She'll make you pop out kids and then make you pay her loans and then leave you.
You know, it's funny because she went to Harvard for her law degree. She did. And that's where she got because she went to Texas Christian University, TCU, and she got converted in Harvard. I'm telling you, there is no, and I mean there is zero. And I just look, Harvard, Princeton, Yale, there is zero positive things coming out of there. I don't care what anybody says. All our judges and lawyers.
Where did Counselor go for law school?
JFK, I think, or something like that.
JFK?
Yeah, just something small, like a small law school. Nothing
John
big.
Fitzgerald Kennedy is a school? I thought that was an airport.
Yeah, the JFK, whatchamacallit. So, yeah. So, no, so it's, and it wasn't even that, well, I think law schools are over because look, most lawyers will never make the kind of money the counselor makes. It's just the truth.
Really? She's that good, huh?
No, it's that bad. It's you know, like dude, you're gonna make more than most attorneys. Because think about it. Yeah, people don't get it. The people who make the most money are business people, sales people, not attorneys. Attorneys.
Well, because when you start your own practice, you still got to start at the bottom. You still got to come up with your client list. You're still a businessman at the end of the day. You got to go get clients.
That's why they fail. That's why most of these attorneys fail because you said it. They're not businessmen. You
guys still got to sell your services, you know?
Yeah. No, but see, and people mock guys like there's a dude named Habas and Associates.
Yeah.
Habas is on every single bus from like Fresno all the way up to Sacramento. Billboards, TV commercial. He all he does is advertise. And that's why he's rich, because he's good at business. I mean, his law practice must suck, but you know what? It don't matter because he's getting clients. And most attorneys don't know how to do this. And if, like, I don't know who's listening, but whoever's listening, what I really want you to figure out is how the business end of what you like or love, you got to learn the business end of it to make money. It's the truth, because look, student loans is the biggest mistake you're ever going to make. And if you already made it, you got to suck it up and just pay it off. You know, because there's nothing you can do. Because look, if you work for the government, it's a sucky dead end job. And you're going to kill yourself for 10 years for what? To save money? No. You got to make money, just pay it off. The faster you pay it off, the better off you'll be. Unless you're married and then you make arrangements with your spouse, like the way how me and the counselor are doing it. You know, because student loans, it's a scam. And the quicker you guys learn that it's a scam and it's illegal, and I don't know why nobody's challenging this, because gosh darn, our hour's ending. But because I think this is more important than why student loans are okay. So the reason why student loans are the way they are is because of Congress. Congress allowed the banks to do this.
Right.
You know, it's funny because like the dudes that started this whole student loan thing from from JP Morgan, they're the ones that started myrichuncles.com.
Is that really what it's called? myrichuncles.com?
Yeah, myrichuncles.com is called a REIT, a real estate investment trust. So they went from student loans after they made as much as they can make with that. Then they started something called My Rich Uncles. And they get a bunch of people to put up money to buy commercial properties, and then they rent it out to Chase. So Chase pays the lease, and then they make money off of the rents and when the property values go up. So these two dudes are smart, but they're scam artists. And they move on from one scam. I mean, it's not a scam if it's legal, but you know what I mean? They take advantage of people one way to the next way to the next way. And that's what they do, because they get money for managing the funds, the REITs. They don't care because everybody knows that it's like real estate is not good. You know, the ROI in real estate most of the time is like negative 5% ROI. Right. The gross is like, oh my God, I got a good, 10% gross ROI. But yeah, your net is negative 5. When you go into like how much you got to pay these fools from myrichuncles.com, you know what I mean? Like they take they take all of the money. They're not stupid. And because people never look at the net, look at your gross. I mean, people always look at the gross, like you just explained it. You know, right. when I'm making $80,000 a year, but your net is more like $50,000 a year. People don't see that. They don't know 30,000 is already gone. And then in investing and in business, people don't understand what the real net value is. You know, so they think they see net after you pay your taxes, but no. Tax is just one aspect of what determines your net. There's a lot more that goes to it. So, the big thing is how can we get rid of student loans? But I still think every kid who has a student loan should pay it off because they're idiots and they deserve to pay it. Seriously, like if you're that stupid to pay for some expensive school, God, you're an idiot and you deserve to pay it. Seriously, like why in the hell am I going to subsidize you? Seriously, I make mistakes. And when I make mistakes, I don't see like hundreds of people slipping me $1 here and there just to help me.
That's also another thing about Elizabeth Warren. This is one of the last things we'll talk about here, is that she wants to completely erase student loan debt as if it never happened and make public education free, 100% free. Well, public education. What I'm saying, education.
University education for free.
Yeah, free, right? And the thing is, what is that? 1.5 trillion is just going to disappear overnight? No. The way it becomes wiped out is a tax there'll be a tax imposed on all of us now, additionally on all our income statements that say, hey, to the federal insurance of student loan consolidation, and basically all you'd have to do is raise people's taxes and then you would wipe that out. But here's the thing. Why should I be responsible for somebody else's bad decision making? Why should I be responsible for? And what about the people who also already pay that off? Say you're a person who pays off their loan. If somebody else got their loan forgiven, you're gonna be pissed. You're gonna be reasonably outraged.
Of course, you're gonna be pissed. Like it's the same thing with social welfare, food stamps. Everybody gets pissed. It's like, what the fuck, dude? Why you know what I mean? It's like, you even got a job. Are you going to tell me with your job you still can't eat? I got to pay for your Oreo cookies? You know what I mean? It's like, that's what makes people mad the most. It's when you're on welfare, you should not be buying high-end Oreo cookies. Why can't you buy the generic Oreo cookies? You know what I mean? It's like you're buying the $5. Oh, I don't know how much Oreo cookies are in like Arizona or
yeah.
But in San Francisco, a bag of Oreo cookies, double stuff's gonna cost you like $5-6. That's a lot, and you can buy generic for $2. You know what I mean? It's like, dude, buy the generic shit. You know what I mean? It's like
it tastes the same. Well, just as good. There's a little bit of a difference, but I don't mind the knockoff brand. It's like people who buy real Frosted Flakes, dude. It's like $8 a box.
Yeah, dude. But anyway, but that's why people get pissed off because But anyway, but let me go back to Elizabeth Warren. And this is very key because I brought up Tim Pool. I brought up Dr. Charles, whatever his last name is. These people do not understand economics at all. Everybody speaks about free markets. What's a free market? What's this? What's like what Tim Pool's? What is a capitalism was for services? Like nobody honestly understands. But this is literally the root of Christianity's principle. Because what I heard yesterday, there was a story about, and this wasn't a parable. This was an actual, Luke recorded this actually happening about the lepers, 10 lepers. So Jesus came down, healed 10 lepers, and he said, go tell your priest that you've been healed or whatever, and then whatever, come back. Only one guy came back. And it was funny because it was a Samaritan dude.
I don't know about that, but keep going. Yeah.
But anyway, yeah, it's a crazy story. But no, like the guy speaking about it, even he didn't understand. And then people, well, how come you understand it? You're not even a Christian. I said, because I know how to read and I know how to listen. So the reason why only one person came back wasn't because the other 9 were ungrateful. It's because you have to understand what was happening at the time. And this is happening today. Time is a loop and it's repeating itself. But in that parable, not a parable, but in that story and how Jesus healed the people, and I actually know how it's done. Because it wasn't through magic, and it was the same RNAi through gene therapy. If you have a certain amount of energy, you can do all these things, blah, 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 which is phenomenal. When I heard that story, I was like, holy crap. But anyway, going back to the priests, who were the priests back in those days? The priests were the doctors. They were the lawmakers. That's what priests used to do in those times. It wasn't like what we see priests do today, just preaching. Those priests had a lot of power, like the way they still do in like the rabbis. Those rabbi dudes, the dudes in the black, they got a lot of power.
Yeah.
They're elected officials, but they run Israel. They're the ones doing the talking and all this other BS. And anyway, so those guys were the ones that were going to say to you, hey, go back to Jesus. If, those 9 guys, those other priests that Jesus told them to go to, they held them back. That's not in the Bible. This wasn't, but I know because I know how it is in the Middle East. Those rabbis or priests, whoever they were, they didn't want you to know that, or want people to know about what Jesus did. They were withholding information.
I believe
and
that.
That's what's happening today. They're withholding, but the preachers don't say that. They the way they interpreted what Luke wrote down is wrong, because the whole point and why Christianity is at the state it is today is why it was back then, because they were withholding the information. Only one priest out of the 10 allowed that leper to go back, because you had to stay in the colony, because it's leprosy. All the lepers stayed in this one area.
Right.
The only way to get out of there is if a priest deemed you clean and no longer sick. So the other priests didn't want that, because why? They lose control. And it's the same thing. Why are these student loans happening? Why is everything happening? Because our politicians don't want to give up control.
Yeah.
They claim to be Christian, but they're not. None of them. I seriously believe none of these dudes are real Christian people. I don't care who it is, maybe with the exception of Donald Trump. But other than that, I don't think Ted Cruz is a real Christian dude. I really don't.
What kind of did it for me was when he said that whole, like, if you don't stand with Israel, I will not stand with you. It's just like, all right, another puppet.
No, and that's the thing. It's like, I hate to say things like this because I don't know, but I was thinking, man, see, these Jewish dudes were like horrible people. But that's only if you interpret, like, because I was like, when I heard that parable, or not that because a parable is something made up, but that account of the lepers, I'm thinking, holy crap, why would they do that? You know what I mean? That's the first thing I thought. It's like, why would them Jews to be doing stuff like that? Like, they should be happy that they're healed. They shouldn't put them back in the camps, like in the leprosy camp. You know what I mean? But that's what happened, because everybody's saying the other 9 were ingrates. No, they weren't ingrates. It was the rulers stopping Christianity. They didn't want people to know it. They didn't want them to know about the economic powers. Because, like, I think one of the big things is, like, I like Dave Ramsey. I've been doing a little bit of research on him, and he's always talking about being charitable. But if you notice, he never says how to be charitable. And he shouldn't. Why? Because he's not the dude to ask. That's for his pastor to figure out. And then I remember we were talking about that the Bible's not for everybody. Well, and then you corrected me and said, no, everybody should read it. It's like, yeah, that's true. Everybody should read the Bible, but only the pastors, only the leaders should be the ones saying where the money should go. Because, Dave Ramsey doesn't know. He just says, look, just be giving. Give like no other. But then, you should really seek counsel on how to give. Because you don't want to just give to some random crackheads. You know what I mean? You don't want to just give randomly for no reason. It has to be with purpose. Because what if you are funding something evil? Like how they do a lot. I mean, I'm not saying Israel's evil, but why is a lot of our money going there? When they're not Christian people, they're not helping anybody. They're not, you know what I mean? They're helping themselves. They're helping create wars and all these other things, but they're not. It's not really helping the downtrodden in that area. It's not helping the downtrodden in this area or in Mexico or anywhere. And the thing is, with true economics, free markets, and Ayn is correct in this part, you treat people the way you want to be treated, which is a Christian principle. And once you start doing that with your money, you'll see how rich you will become. Like, and that's not charity. Charity is something totally different.
Right.
People differently is an economic principle, and that makes you rich. And that's like, so if anybody's going to get anything, being charitable, you get nothing for it. But being thoughtful and considerate to others will make you rich beyond your wildest dreams. Those are two very distinct differences. Charity is what you give to retarded dude. But being kind to somebody else, like investing in them. And that's what you're supposed to do when you're rich. Rich people invest in other people with nothing but a dream and a work ethic. It don't matter what your race is or your age. Even if you're like, the younger the better probably, because then and you have to take the chance to lose everything with that person. Right. It's kind of like a marriage without the sex. You know what I mean? Because everybody's all, well, what do we do? How do, the carnal mind is so hard. And it's actually not hard to control if your mind is busy. Yeah. But, how come rich people fall into sex cults? Because their mind is no longer busy. They're just hoarding money, giving their money away in charity, but it's not charity. Because the people advising them are wrong. And that's the thing. We fall into these traps like student loans. Why? Because our leaders are unethical and we follow them blindly. And so my last plea would be, if there's real Christians who understand the difference between charity and treating people good, if you can understand those two basic economic principles, because charity is an economic principle. Treating somebody good is an economic principle. That is what Tim Pool doesn't understand. Capitalism for services. For services just means treat other people good. That's it. It's not a real financial thing, but you should expect to become wealthy when you invest in other people. I mean, because seriously, what you're doing with your sales, you could expand this. Yeah. You can expand your system. And as long as you pay people well, you're going to be like super rich. And like, I don't want to talk about Kylie Jenner because I really don't know much about her business, but she's a billionaire right now.
Mm-hmm.
And I guarantee you it's not because she treats her employees like shit. You know what I mean? Like, and you know, for whatever reasons, the people who made her a billionaire really believe in whatever it is that she's selling. And those are, if we can get even like 10 listeners to honestly understand the economic principles of they will become super rich. And that just 10 people can actually start a big revolution in how we focus on economics in this country. And those people can become and somehow, some way lobby a real political leader who can make political changes, not just at the local level, but at the national level, because it's just how it works.
Yeah.
Student loans are student loans because why? Look to myrichuncles.com for the answer. Those two dudes from Chase, JP Morgan, they're the ones that started the whole program. They're the ones that started that idea. Why? Because they had foresight to lobby politicians, whether it was Ted Cruz or whether it was Elizabeth Warren. They're all in bed together, all of them. But somehow, some way, we think they're on opposite ends of the spectrum, but they're not. Every single politician knows that the budget will grow a 5% or 7% to fight inflation. Everybody knows that. And not one politician does anything to stop it.
Right.
Trump tried, he was like, what the hell? You know, like he literally tried to do it, and then he was trying to do an executive order, but they fought him, and they said no. Everybody's involved, every single person in the Senate, every single person in the House, they all agree on this, and that is wrong. That is anti-Christian. Because that's not how inflation works. Inflation is even something that may be imaginary. It's an imaginary principle, because if it's really based on treating people well, you know, you could always get discounts. You could always, you know what I mean? So inflation, what's inflation? It doesn't really exist. It's a man-made principle that goes outside of the realm of what Jesus wanted in economics. Just based on that story about the lepers. You're like, how do you get all that from that? Because the people controlling the information, the priests of their time, are the same thing today. Today, our priests are now called congressmen, are now called senators.
I see what you're saying. Yeah.
There are priests. There are the priests today, instead of, you know, because we live in a secular world. And it's not, you know, they're not our priests. It's our Congress people. It's our representatives. It's our judges. And our judges are not, you know, their Bible comes from Harvard, Princeton, Yale. Everything's based on an atheist, Darwin philosophy. It's not based on a Christian philosophy anymore. Every single Christian leader will put secular beliefs ahead of our founding principles. Everybody knows that. There's a reason why the government got involved in marriage. Why did it get involved in marriage? So that way we weren't taking advantage of the weak. Like the whole purpose of you know, the government getting involved, and this is one of the court cases, was because if a 14-year-old was to get married, that's too young. Or what if somebody had an STD and had some kind of mind control over the wife? That also should be stopped. You know, we should step in. But then somehow, some way, it got bastardized into believing that same-sex couples should have all of the, you know, rights as a straight couple. That's wrong. But why is it wrong? We just can't say it's wrong because it's in the Bible. That's not going to fly. The same reason why when Jesus healed those 10 dudes, why didn't they come back? Because they want to stop information. If we can't explain why things are wrong, then we're just as bad as the priests stopping the lepers from coming back to worship Jesus. Well, not even worship. I don't even think Jesus wanted worship. He just wanted thanks. You know what I mean? He just wanted them to be thankful to God for what he did.
Yeah.
And I think that's all he wanted. But there's a reason why that story is important, because it's also not just because he wanted thanks and he's selfish. Jesus wasn't selfish. He wanted to show everybody how dangerous the leaders are when they withhold information. Because seriously, the reason why that story is so important is because it's a medical technology that could have saved millions of lives. But since we weren't open way back then, that discovery is just barely made in the 80s. The same thing Jesus did to the lepers, we made that discovery in like 88, 89. And so, you know what I mean? It took us 2,000 years for something that, but why? Because our leaders withhold information. Information is like gold. That is gold. But, you know, that's what's happening now. And we have to somehow release that information again. We have to explain why same-sex marriage is bad. But we cannot condemn, and that's the trick. See, Jesus wasn't here for condemnation. He wasn't condemning anybody. He didn't destroy those lepers. He didn't destroy those priests, right? He didn't. He just showed you something. He showed you what happens when you withhold information. Your life is no longer good. Those lepers have to go back to, and that's the whole point. We have to be able to explain without condemning. But look at our leaders. They condemn each other. Ted Cruz is fighting with Elizabeth Warren, name calling, all this, all that. And then Trump is sitting in the middle, and it looks like he's name calling, but he's really trying to unify everybody. Because a lot of people, you know, they go, oh no, that's like, you know, Trump isn't playing 3D chess or 7-dimensional chess or 4-dimensional chess. He's not that smart, but he actually is. You just watching what he does and understanding his, you know, where he's at. It's just hard not to say, like, that dude has to be guided with some, like, somebody spiritually, like, he has to have some kind of pastor behind him. You know what I mean? Like, I'm almost convinced that he does listen to whoever his priest is. He has to, because he's in some kind of, because he can't be like George Bush, walking around with that Bible, talking crazy, doing nothing. You know, like Donald Trump did a lot of great things for New Orleans. He did a lot of great things for almost everybody. And we've been averting crisis after crisis after crisis. Look what's happening in Iran. He averted that. We're not at war with those guys. They backed down with showing force without using force. So I don't know. I mean, it's because I wish I knew more about the Bible. But
just read more. I keep telling you to do it, and you won't do it. So.
Yeah, because reading takes a lot of time.
Yeah, but we got to cut it short there because I got to go. But thank you guys for listening to the show here. Hope you got something out of it with the leadership and with taxes and with student loans. And yeah, we'll be sure to resume this conversation a little bit more thoroughly. We'll catch you guys in the next episode. Take care.